What's up, guys? The Sun Nova here. This video right here is going to be kind of near and dear to me. I have a sort of bone to pick with Alan Watts. Any Alan Watts fans out there? I don't really watch him too much. A couple of my friends and other people online plus suggested videos led me in the way of some Alan Watts, and I listened to a couple videos, and a couple of them they were he was very critical of Jesus. Now, the irony is the similar message that Jesus was spreading, which obviously Jesus was far before Alan Watts' times, if we're going to talk literally. The same message Jesus was spreading is actually the same message Alan Watts was trying to get across, in a way. And the irony is that he would disrespect one of the pioneers, or not the pioneer, of this message. And he's a little critical, and he says he went about it wrong and got himself killed. And my viewpoint on it is, I'm pretty sure that was the intention. So I don't think he went about it wrong. I think he knew what he was getting himself into. And the way I understand the words, I think he did it just right. As a matter of fact, I think it's very simple to understand. I think Alan Watts complicates things and tries to get a similar message across, but I think Jesus simplifies it and says it pretty accurately without having to consistently tell people, you are God, you are God. We are gods on this earth, you are God. And people make the claim that Jesus was saying he is God, that he was God. And I'm going to prove it with some scripture that there's a separation there. And he's not saying he's the Almighty. He's not saying he is God the Father, period. And some Christians may have a problem with this. Keep an open mind. Just listen to what I have to say. I'm defending Jesus in this regard, as I usually do. Actually, as I always do. This is based on Alan Watts. If you ever come across Alan Watts, he will be critical of Jesus. And he comes across critical, and then the crowd kind of laughs, and he laughs almost like as a mockery. So let's be critical of Alan Watts here. So some Alan Watts videos, he talks about Jesus makes the claim he is God. Okay, I had to look the scripture up because this is what Alan Watts was talking about. So this is where Jesus says he makes the claim he is God. He went about it all wrong. Okay, all right. John 8:13. King James Version. Okay. John 8:13. This is what Alan Watts was referring to. The Pharisees therefore said to him, you bear witness of yourself. Your witness is not true. They're saying you bear witness of yourself. You're claiming yourself to be God. That's what that means. Your witness is not true, or you're not true, you're lying, or your God is not true. You're not claiming the witness of the true God. All right? So they called Jesus a liar. So, John 8:14. This is how Jesus replies. Jesus answers, even if I bear witness of myself, my witness is true. He's defending himself here. For I know where I came from and where I am going. But you do not know where I come from and where I am going. So you must not know me, or you must not know the true God. Okay, because you're not recognizing him in me. That's kind of what he's saying there. Okay, it goes on to say, you judge according to the flesh. So you're not seeing the spirit within here. You're judging me according to what you see in the flesh. I judge no one. And yet, if I do judge, my judgment is true. This is where Jesus says what he has to say here. This is the separation. So he's not claiming to be God. Okay? This is what he says. We're in the same scripture. 8:14. For I am not alone. Did you hear that? For I am not alone. So who could he be talking about? For I am not alone, but I am with the Father, who sent me. So he says, I am not alone. I am with the Father who sent me. So he's referring to something else and himself at the same time. Okay, something greater than even himself. All right. It is also written, this is what Jesus says, it is also written in your law that the testimony of men is true. I am one who bears witness of myself. So Jesus says, I am one who bears witness of myself. And the Father who sent me bears witness of me. There's a separation there. This is the scripture and the time where Alan Watts said Jesus claimed he was God and he got killed for it, basically, and he went about it all wrong. I think he knew exactly what he was doing. I think because he got killed, the magnitude of the message and the validity carried on. I think over the time and the years, especially with some modern day Christianity and other Christian based religions, that somewhere there was a little loss in translation, and they think people think Jesus is God, but he speaks with a separation. He refers something higher than himself, and if you currently think that Jesus is God, the Creator, the Almighty, um, you're actually viewing Jesus as exactly what the Pharisees did when they were judging him in the flesh and uh, accused him of blasphemy and put him to death for. So we got to explore that. You got to know that there's a separation there. All right. So in my notes, I put here, man is assuming. They're assuming his words may reflect his divinity, but he does not make the direct claim. So the way he is, he's very wise. Um, you know, though he was divine in my beliefs and is divine, he does refer to something greater than himself, and he doesn't make the claim. He has a separation when he speaks. It's important to listen to that scripture. Let's keep in mind, man acted out the death of Jesus. They had a choice. Once again, the Father's will was there. They had the free will to kill him at the time and put him to death, even though it was the will of the Father and a prophecy was fulfilled. Alan Watts, people who listen to Alan Watts, a prophecy was fulfilled as well. So I don't think he went about it wrong. I'm pretty sure it worked out just as planned. I don't think we can be critical about that. It seems Jesus planned it to be this way, I'm sure, and they most certainly planned it to be that way because a prophecy was getting fulfilled one way or another, Also, I want to do one more scripture here. It's John 8:42. Jesus speaks with a separation. I wanted to make this clear once again. Because the critical Alan Watts, the great speaker that many people follow and admire, I have to be critical of his teachings, especially on this subject, because yeah, he's just wrong. I don't think he's comprehending the message correctly. Once again, Jesus speaks with a separation. John 8:42. If God were your Father, you would love me, for I proceeded forth and came from God. Jesus is saying that. For I proceeded forth and came from God, nor have I come of myself, but he who sent me. So he's saying, I'm not on my own here, nor have I come of myself, but he who sent me. Clearly a separation. Let's listen to the words of Jesus, the exact words, and not the misconstrued words. This is scripture. This is in the book, okay? These are the apparent words of Jesus, and these hold true to me. And you got to think, people say, well, the Bible has been altered, and yeah, it's been changed a bit, I'm sure. And some people can say, oh, the Bible is a book to keep people in chains and enslaved. Uh, I don't think you read the whole Bible. I would disagree. I think it's a beautiful story of enlightenment from beginning to end. It does start in Genesis and it does end in Revelations. So, I would disagree with that. But I just wanted to make clear the separation, um, and be a little critical of Mr. Alan Watts, because don't get me wrong, he was onto something, but I think, my personal opinion, Alan Watts was not truly enlightened. I think he was a bookworm. I think he was maybe overeducated. And I think he attained a bunch of knowledge, but I don't think he was truly enlightened. In my opinion, to be truly enlightened is to be in touch with the divine source, or God the Father, as Jesus taught. I think Mr. Watts couldn't quite comprehend the message of Jesus, and I don't think he read the Bible as much as maybe he should have, and if he did, he didn't comprehend it correctly, because Jesus does not make the claim to be God. Let's remember, Jesus refers to himself as Son of Man multiple times. Son of God, yes, not the God. He says Son of Man, Son of God. I don't see the discrepancy in that. I think if we look into other spiritual practices and teachings as well, messengers, prophets, sons of gods, those who are children of the divine creator and in tune and in touch and enlightened, are a son or daughter of God. A child of God. So, people say we're children of God. Well, yeah, in Psalms, I think it's 82:6, it says in the Old Testament, it says, ye are gods, and Jesus refers to that. He says, doesn't it say ye are gods? And then some will argue, they'll say, well, that was a, title appointed to like judges and Pharisees and things like that. But the point he's trying to get across is, listen, you guys are over here referring to yourselves as gods. You're calling each other gods. I'm not even doing that. I'm actually saying, if anything, I'm lesser than that, I guess. I mean, with all due respect, he's saying a son of God. Matter of fact, he's humbling himself so far is to say son of man. They're all over her. They're over here calling each other gods and stuff. Um, kind of like Alan Watts is doing, and Jesus saying, "Hold on, no. I'm not. I'm not God. I'm not even a God. I'm a son of God." Right? He says, "I'm the son of man." Right? So, even with Jesus's words of wisdom and his apparent divinity and immaculate conception and miracles and all these things pointing to him being divine, he's saying, no, look, I'm not God. I'm not even calling myself God. I'm not even calling myself a God, like all these people are doing these days. I'm Jesus. I set one of the best examples, and I'm calling myself a son of God, or a son of man, even. I'm humbling myself down that much. That's the way I see it, at least. Um, you know, Alan Watts said, I think he wasn't the first to comprehend divinity, and he was killed for spilling the beans. He said spilling the beans, and others kept it secret, and he laughed after that. I think that that says it all right there. I mean, that's ignorance right there. Jesus wasn't the first to comprehend divinity, and he was killed for spilling the beans, and others kept it secret. That's pretty critical. I think personally we should thank Jesus for sharing this path to enlightenment with us and how to do it. I wrote down by physical death, and as an example, he was hopeful it would hold more validity and probably foresaw the future in hopes to help others. Sure seemed like it to me. So he didn't go about it wrong, if you ask me. He didn't approach it wrong. It seems if it turned out pretty correctly, even with all the misinterpretations over the years. I mean, it's a pretty good example to follow. And I think later man misinterpreted the message, and you know, and that happens, and you can't fault man for that unless they knew what they were doing and they purposely did it to confuse people and stuff like that. Another thing I wanted to touch before I end the video is being Christ-like. Alan Watts is critical of the example of Christ. I'm gonna be critical of the example of Alan Watts. I think Christ simplified it without coming out right and saying it. I think Alan Watts tries to express the same thing, but it's so confusing that how could you ever figure it out for yourselves if he the way he tries to get his point across. I mean, if I drill into your head that you're a god, you might believe it, but I think it's going to ruin the journey for you. And another thing he's critical of is the example of Christ and being Christ-like, and says everyone falls short and it's impossible. He goes, it's impossible, ha ha ha, and the crowd laughs. Well, yeah, it's called setting the bar high. It's supposed to be nearly impossible or literally impossible. That's what it means to follow Christ. That's what the Christ-like example means. It means if you do it and you fall short, then odds are you probably did pretty good, right? So don't beat yourself up. If you're trying to follow in the way, in the example of Christ, I commend you for it. I appreciate it. Even if you fall short, you probably doing a pretty good job. I don't think Christ would expect you to not fall short, and or God the Father. And just keep in mind the separation and the scripture that we read. And if you get a chance, watch some Alan Watts and see how critical he is. And basically, I made this video to say I don't think Alan Watts was truly enlightened. I think he was a bookworm, and I don't think he comprehended God. I think he just studied a lot and started spitting out a bunch of confusing things that he gathered from all over the world in books, and didn't come to a real realization. I think he just read it somewhere that we are gods or whatever, and I think he started spreading the message. Oh, well, it says it in this book, we are gods, so yeah, you're a god. I'm going to show you how. Yeah, I don't think it's that simple. But thanks, like, subscribe, watch, comment, give me feedback. The Sun Nova out.